So, Ollie, please move us on. You seem to have the clicker. So, this session is fundamentally about 4 things, if we can hold them in our head. The first is climate adaptation. The second is finance. The third is health. And the fourth is scale. That's what we're here to talk about today. But before we get going, is it okay if I have a little bit of unscripted fun? Could everybody stand up? I don't mind whether you are Genti or Naveen or Lena, please stand up. What I want to do is get a sense of who is in the room and what kind of an audience we have. If you're having a private conversation at the back, now is the time to whisper. Okay. My first question is going to be one around climate. It will be a bit wonky. So remain standing if you know what a PAS is, a P-A-S. Pretty wonky. Okay, am I losing a lot of people? But who am I not losing? P-A-S? Okay, I lost more people than I thought I would lose. Oh my God. Okay, that's fine. All right, everybody up, everybody up, everybody up, everybody up. All right, let's try something different. Let's do something healthy. All right, I'll keep it easy. Remain standing if you know what the Belém Health Action Plan is. I lost, okay. That's interesting. So I would say I lost about 40% of the people. Everybody up. So bear in mind, health guys, there are 40% of the people in the room that don't know what the Belém Health Action Plan is. I said finance. Let's do something financy. Remain standing if you know what concessional finance is and can confidently describe it. Remain standing if you know what it is. Yeah. You're not confident. Not confident. Oh, sorry. Was it the confidence? Okay, good. Okay. All right. That's also helpful. We probably have about 10% of people in the room know what concessional finance is. Okay, everybody sit down. That's helpful for me. So my take on that is, okay, maybe the questions were the wrong questions, but climate policy wonkiness is not in the room. That we lost a lot of people with my past question. Belém Health Action Plan, we lost about 40% of people in the room. And on the concessional finance, we were left with only about 10% who knew what it was. Okay? I think it's really important that we understand who's in the room. Why? Because this panel is not for my benefit, it's not for the panelists' benefits, it's for everybody in the room's benefit. And actually, the panelists think they're here for a panel, but it's not a panel. I got them under false pretenses. This is a conversation with 80 people in the room, and they're just one of the 80 people in the room. Before we get going, though, if you could move the slide on for me, Ollie. These are the panelists that will be taking their seats momentarily. I'm not going to introduce them because it says who they are and what their titles are and what their names are. But I want you to know they're not even primus inter pares. They're just one of us. We're all in this together. Where I'm going to go next with the clicker, please, Ollie, is this. We have Scribera in the room. Scribera are over there. And what they do is, hi Scribera, thank you for the wave. They visualize the conversation for us live. They're pretty good. So if you scan that code, you can share with them anything that you're thinking, any questions that you have, any tensions that are arising in you around this 4-headed monster of climate, health, finance, and scale. So feel free to scan, and Scribera will not just be riffing visually on what they hear from our mics, but what you submit to them. There is a question that is on the screen as a prompt. How does capital find investable projects, and how do those with adaptation projects find the money that they need on the terms that they want? That sounds like deal making to me. How does money find projects and projects find money? Any thoughts on that? Scan QR, Scribera, Scribbles. Ollie, next one, please. I don't know why you've got the clicker. Ollie's here to get us all going with a handful of slides that I hope will frame this conversation about money and projects. And so, Ollie, could you do like 3.5 to 5 minutes? Is that enough? You can manage that? And I kind of want to hear about healthy projects. I want to hear what money is going to be getting out of investing in those healthy projects, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on how we make that happen at scale, please. Do you reckon you could do that in 3 to 5 minutes?
I'll give it a whirl.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Sounds like I can. So yeah, I'm down on the agenda as a fire starter, which feels like a somewhat poorly chosen metaphor given the conditions outside today. So instead, I'm hoping that cool heads can prevail. I'll offer some remarks, as Daniel said, around the kind of projects that we're interested in and the case for investing in them and how we might go about mobilising that investment, which the panel can then chew on. And talk a bit about some of the work I've done with many people in the room while we go through. So my name's Ollie, I'm from Mode Economics, and yeah, we've been doing this piece of work over the last couple of years with our partners Resilient Cities Network and the Sustainable Markets Initiative, looking at the case for investment in health-related climate adaptation. I think we all know that this investment has to encompass protecting health systems, ensuring they remain accessible and functional during acute climate events. It needs to provide them with the resources and capacity that they need to respond to climate-related disease burden, but critically it also needs to invest outside the traditional healthcare system to reduce exposure to threatening climate hazards, to change behaviour and to reduce underlying health burdens that create vulnerability to those hazards. And our work has really been focusing on this last bucket. We looked at a set of well-evidenced low-cost interventions and thought about, to begin with, what would happen if they were rolled out at scale across the globe at a feasible level that we understand from spatial modelling. And we found by 2030, we could be saving more than 700,000 lives a year. That's just avoided mortality, not to mention avoided morbidity. That in turn would have significant impacts on reducing the pressure and costs associated with healthcare, $70 billion alone by 2030. And that would have knock-on impacts on the economy, on emissions, which we can go into in a moment. So turning to the case for this investment, I'll talk now about a bit of work that we've been doing with Naveen from Rockefeller, as well as Humanity Insured. This used data from the insurance sector to estimate the returns generated by some interventions in urban regeneration, in healthy workplaces, in resilient healthcare, and certain forms of insurance. We found that those opportunities themselves are representative of a very large investment opportunity of the order of $100 billion a year. And furthermore, the social case for these interventions is very, very strong. So we found more than 10 times costs of benefits. I know other studies that have come out recently find even stronger cases. So there's a lot of investment with really strong returns associated with them out there. Interestingly, when we thought just about the monetized returns, so the cash flows that are returned in the form of reduced energy bills, reduced healthcare costs, improved labour productivity, we still find really strong returns, so of the order of 2 to 3 times costs. And we find that under appropriate conditions, those monetized returns can form the basis for supporting private sector participation. So in a world where we have limited public budgets and the need for innovative, agile involvement, there's an opportunity here to bring the private sector into the picture. The last bit of work I'll introduce is again this program with Resilient Cities Network, which reveals the appetite amongst cities to lean in here. So we've got together a community of practice of 33 cities, some of whom are represented in the room, but have decided to make this a priority and want to take action and are starting to build pipelines of projects. And we're supporting them by building decision tools that help them to assess for risks in their local area and build the case for investment in their in their city, as well as embedding that within an end-to-end policy framework, from developing, understanding risks through to building the program, making the business case, funding, and implementation. So there's appetite out there from cities to make this happen. So I will leave the panel with a question: is how do we make this happen? All this fantastic investment with really strong returns, amenable to many forms of capital, and with strong appetite from recipients. There's a need, I think, to go, clearly it has to be a public and private partnership, and it has to go from the experimental pilots in rapidly towards a mature policy environment with capital being deployed at scale. I think philanthropies and MDBs have an important role to play in taking public-private partnerships along this journey, in incentivizing investment, in de-risking these pilots, but also kind of at scale creating standards, building international pipelines. And the last thing I say then is, I think for cities specifically here, there's a real opportunity through networks such as the one we have with Lena and colleagues to transcend national policy frameworks and to really engage with this picture, this ecosystem. And there's an opportunity, I think, for the private sector not only to take leadership in driving some of this investment, but also to be sources of innovation around things like new insurance, around self-care, all sorts of other wonderful things. So with that, I will hand over to the panel. Oh, no.
Well, no, thanks for the handover. I think what I liked about that was you covered climate adaptation, finance, health, and scale. I was thinking from your presentation that maybe my fourth one should have been urban and cities as the route to scale. That was my reflection on what it was that you presented. What I'm going to suggest is let's thank Ollie. Take a seat, Ollie. Let's flip the slides and get the panel up on stage. If you could move your stools underneath your pictures, that would be great. I'm reliably informed that either Alice or one of her deputies will be joining us. But thank you.
Do we match?
Yeah. Lena, take a seat under your name. I'm not going to go to the panel next. You know how when panels talk at you for 50 minutes and then they say 10 minutes at the end for Q&A and what that's like for you? I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to start with questions. So based on what you've either heard so far or why you came to this room, what do you want to get out of this session? And I would like just name, affiliation, and no speechifying. Come on, guys. Anybody want to tell me why they're here or what they want to get out of it? Can we get a roving mic there and then to the back, please? Just give name, affiliation, and just really crisp. What do you want out of this?
So I'm Kit England, I'm from Paul Watkis Associates, and I'm here to understand where is the role for the private sector versus where is the role for the public sector, and where do we really mean that rather than just talking good game.
Thank you. Right at the back in the bar area. Interesting that the second question comes from the bar already. So public and private, what do we really mean?
Good afternoon all. My name is Muhammad Kabir Usman. I'm from Flow Taxis Africa, affiliated to CCI, that's Climate Care Initiative. So I'm here actually to hear more actionable points, what the forum could do for especially the vulnerable women in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's foreground vulnerable women in Africa. Anything else that people want to get out of today? I'm going to give you my mic.
Sure. You're catching? Yeah. So thank you so much. Yeah, very exciting, actually, this session. So, I'm Bhim Adhikari from IDRC Canada. So my interest would be how we can de-risk private capital from public finance. Yeah? What are the experiments looks like and how we really can go about it.
Yeah. De-risking the capital. Okay. Any more for any more? One here. I'm going to go here first and then over there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Federico from Buenos Aires City Government. We are facing climate risk driven by flooding and heat. We are updating our climate action plan. We are working hard. We have more than 100 climate shelters and green corridors among many other actions that we are taking. But we continue being, most of the projects are financed by MDB or philanthropy, by grants. So we want to know would private sector and insurance need to see from cities like ours to start to begin a conversation, or if we are if we can't have access because of our macroeconomic context. I mean, we are financed primarily by grants because our macroeconomic context doesn't help us to raise debt from the municipal level.
Thanks, Federica. I think I'm going to unpack. I'm going to try and unpack. My unpack is, unfortunately, he's from Argentina and in municipal government. And at a municipal government level, his borrowing is wrecked by what his country is doing at a national level. This is being live streamed, and that affects their ability for credit worthiness at a local level. So how do we de-risk through credit so they can access finance municipally and bypass the situations at the macroeconomic level? Good. Was there one more?
Hi, I'm Zibia. I'm here with Teal Productions, which is a documentary film company based out of New York. And my question is how you all see storytelling and journalism coming into these projects.
Okay, good. Do you mind if I leave it there for now? We had public and private. We had vulnerable women in Africa. We had de-risking of a sort twice, and we had storytelling. I may have forgotten something else. Forgive me. Oh, really? Really? Thank you for noting. I stand corrected. Well, Felicity, seeing as you're speaking already, shall we start with the capital? I mean, one way this question was phrased is, what does capital need from those that have projects that are both climatey and healthy to get funded?
All projects that return a revenue will be invested. There's more money than there are projects, according to the finance world. According to the project developing world, there's no finance. So the problem that we see is really about the way those projects are presented. We do not need the economic case for adaptation, health, or climate. We know that we save money in the future by doing things. What we need to focus on, in your question, is the financial framing. I don't think we need new data or better data. We'll always work to get better data. But we do need to manage risk and ensure that the project can be delivered. So what can we do? We can make sure that when we show up, we identify the risks, we ensure that it can make a profit, we're clear about the value we bring. So if you're a city or a government, understanding your own role in the improved environment or the improved health measure gains, and having a fee structure. So unfortunately, finance is a weird language, vanilla, chocolate, bonds, coupons, whatever, but it is a language that can be learned. And I think cities can do a lot more to understand their role in presenting a more bankable model. So my plea for everybody in the room is, can we use the data we've got, understand that imperfection is a risk that can be managed? I'm sitting next to somebody from insurance. We just need to define that risk. That's what we do all the time in banking. Understand how to structure financial flows in and out and play your part in contributing to that flow. We're talking about avoided health damage, avoided risks from climate change, avoided. Of course, that's hard, but we've done it in energy efficiency, and there's a clear gain. And as the climate gets hotter, it becomes more obvious. No more obvious than in agriculture, where we see the commodity and yield losses so advanced. We already see companies in adaptation making good returns, so warning systems, et cetera, are very clearly being invested in. And additionally, don't forget that maybe you don't need to name a health project health. So I'm not a fan of stacking. But what I think we're facing today in the world is a situation where those people with the money, philanthropes, are looking for a new story to someone's story message. So as someone in America decides climate's not a thing, we turn to other things, energy security, resilience, health. That's fine. So we can look at the projects we're already delivering in clean water, improving air through transitioning away from coal, through investments in nature-based solution infrastructure and mangroves, and we can start to assess the health story in order to draw down concessional finance, someone's question, concessional finance being the cheaper money that we get from donors or from philanthropes. Then donor money is then coupled with additional investment from NDBs, which then draws down or pays down the risk for private sector to do things in a new financial model. So in short, let's work on the financial models in order to bridge the gap between what project developers think is bankable and what bankers are prepared to invest in. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we just briefly unpack the financial model? Does that mean that there are returns for the investor that are securitizable based on revenue streams? Is that what that means?
That's what that means.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that's what it means because maybe others didn't know that that's what it meant. So the point is, it's not necessarily about how climatey or how healthy it is, although that's important and that's motivating.
No, it's very important that it's climate and healthy, but I'm saying that you need to be careful about the stories you claim. The more things you claim, the more things you have to measure, the higher your costs for monitoring. And so, the question is, who are you getting the money from? What are their needs? And you have to align it. Finance is not one point. You start needing maybe grant, catalytic finance, then you'll need investment finance to keep the thing running for a short while, then you'll need a loan to scale, and then you'll come onto the commercial market. So when you look at the points where you draw down finance, you'll be drawing it and you'll have to have different stories. So being clever at the beginning about what is the value of my project, how to maximize that value, and then to get the stories right is really key. So often we see people go to a venture capital investor, expensive money, but easy to get, and then they're no longer eligible for donor funding. So you can shoot yourself in the foot by not knowing the investment cycle. So they're things that,
Know thy investor.
Know thy investment strategy. Have an investment strategy.
And how the different investors are motivated.
Yeah.
Tina, because we heard something about de-risking those investments, that seems like the obvious place to ask you to come in.
Thank you. So I'm talking from the perspective of Munich Re, which is both a direct insurance company but also a reinsurance company of local insurers. And the good thing about being in such a big company is it comes at risk in many, many different ways. And I say that because many people think insurance is staid and restrictive and not flexible. And I'd like to challenge that. And particularly with the question that you've put to us, how do you use insurance to make an investment viable or even to work hand in hand with the investors? So Felicity was saying you need to look at a project and understand its risks and then decide that it is worth investing in and to what degree you want to invest in it. And that is a factor of, yes, identifying, but mostly quantifying those risks. If it's got a tiny bit of risk, you might invest quite a lot. If it's got a lot of risk, you might not invest at all. And so that's where you turn to others to take that risk away. Now, it can be interventions, or it can be putting that risk on somebody else's shoulders, like the insurance shoulders, or you could do the two together. So to get the insurance, you need to do that intervention, because that will then mitigate the underlying risk. The point, the result of that is you end up with a risk assessment that is investable. So you can say, I recognize there are these risks, I put those to one side with another AAA balance sheet, therefore I am comfortable that this risk will be delivered and, as importantly, sustained, will carry on over time. And I think of the banking and the insurance world as layered. So the investors, if I make it broader than just banks, investors look at the people and the project and the pieces at a very granular level, and they will take on certain aspects that insurers won't. Insurers look at the higher level, the catastrophic level, the unusual level, and that is too much heat, too little heat, too much water, too little water, but it's at a certain level. And so the two work together in a tower. If we can take the top end, the really expensive problem out, then it means that the investors can look at it in a more granular way and look at the individuals and the day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year delivery.
Can I add something on that? Because I think you were talking primarily, if I will, as a property insurer thinking about the physical risk in the world where you and a bank could work together. And there's another type of insurance around credit risk insurance, which any deal that an investor is going to want to do will have some kind of credit risk insurance wrapper. So there's work that can be done with the insurers to manage down the risk in the first place on a physical side, i.e. take some of the risk, but also there's an important role for the insurance industry to play de-risking for the investor by providing a credit wrapper, perhaps.
Yes, as insurance can go across all the spectrum. So it can be on the credit side, you're right. It can be on the political side. Argentina's not a brilliant risk right now, but it can do that. It can go on the people side too. So there is absolutely a point where climate is affecting the life insurance world. And if I was to make it into an analogy we all know, what's that smoker, non-smoker question around climate? So where do you get to the point where the insurance data says if it is this hot or this wet, then we are going to have more problems on the health side of it. And that's not just deaths, that's also accident, illness, and that flows into pandemics and the spread of diseases in areas they wouldn't normally have been, and also not being contained. So I think that it's simple to think of it in property, in terms of my physical structure didn't happen, but it's actually true across all of the world, of all of everything we do, can have insurance applied to it.
I can see Glyn nodding. I'll bring him in later, but as a health insurer, I think that was kind of music to his ears. So if the framing of this was how does capital find projects and how does projects find capital, so far we've heard from two types of capital providers, but we haven't heard from those that have the assets and maybe have the projects. And in your own ways, there's two representatives of government here with us. We have Lena representing a network of cities, and Teresa, you're representing the COP30 presidency that's thinking obviously at a national level, but at an intergovernmental level as well. I don't mind which one of you wants to speak first, but when you're thinking about how you front up to the markets, what is it that you might wish to see from your partners or from capital to try and be more helpful to you?
Well, speaking from the COP30 presidency perspective, so we've been doing a lot of work on how to make sure that national adaptation plans and subnational adaptation plans become more investable, and to really bridge adaptation planning to finance in this sense. So one of the aspects that we've been working on and that was very relevant at COP30 was the Belém Health Action Plan. And the Belém Health Action Plan actually has a couple of key pillars. One of them is health information and surveillance systems, so making sure that early warning systems, climate data is informing the adaptation of health systems. The other one is capacity and capability of health systems, so training the workforce and making sure there are protocols for extreme heat, infectious diseases, and a bunch of health hazards that are made worse by climate impacts. And then also innovation, research, and making sure that we are able to pilot, test, and then exchange information and knowledge across different countries about what is working to make sure that we can effectively scale these solutions. So I think what would we expect from the private sector and from private capital and insurance, philanthropy, all of these different sources of capital that have to be bridged together to make sure that health systems are more adaptable, is that these institutions are really looking into these different plans and regulatory frameworks that are in place so that we can promote an alignment of interests and priorities and make sure that investment is being channeled towards projects that are really being prioritized at the national, subnational level, and to make sure that we have the multi-level governance frameworks in place to advance this. So, of course, the Belém Health Action Plan is a multilateral framework that has to be implemented in different countries according to their own domestic realities. But it's an important framework to make sure that the discussion about how private capital and other sources of capital is funding the resilience of health systems to make sure that there is standardization and sharing of good practices in this sense.
I think there's a really helpful distinction that you made towards the end there about the financing of the resilience of the health system itself versus, or in addition to, financing the resilience of society to climate and health shocks and stresses. Two different things, but interrelated, because obviously the resilience of the health system is even more stressed when we have less healthier populations. Worth distinguishing, but clear interplay between the two. Lena, you speak with cities around the world every day. I'm interested in your perspectives on what they're telling you they need.
And exactly where you finished is what cities can do. So we work with 102 cities from across the world. We have a dedicated community of practice of 33 cities that is led by the cities of Rio, Lagos, Manchester. And cities have different levels of maturity and starting points on how they think the nexus of, I would say, urban risk and health, and specifically climate risk and health. We have cases such as Greater Manchester or Singapore, that they are building place-based preventative solutions on the ground. They are rethinking their design guidelines on how they can really create places and spaces that can actually improve the health of their communities, whether you are a 5-year-old or you are an 80-year-old. But you have also very interesting cases, such as the one in Broward County, which is in Florida, or Cape Town, where the city is integrating resilience and is adding this kind of health considerations within how they build their portfolio of projects, within their capital plans, within their investment plans. So how every single investment they are doing is able to create and maximize the benefits for the communities. Now, what is important here to understand is the scale. And that is related to finance. In many cases, we are talking about very small scale, community level projects that are very difficult to be financed. So the idea here is, how do you bundle all of this? And how do you create a mechanism and a portfolio where it is then worth discussing with the private sector or with the banks, that it has a blended way of looking at it. And I'm going to finish, and then I would like to give actually my seat to a city, because we have here multiple city representatives, and it would be great to actually hear from them. But I want to say that at this point, there is a great awareness and a good understanding from local governments around the importance of integrating health within how they govern. This wasn't the case 5 years before. So we have that, and we have conquered that. What we really need at this point is to help them actually move from planning and understanding to action. And this is where our focus is. So with that, I'm going to give my seat.
Wait, stay for a minute. Because there's a lot there. What I wanted to pick up on is the work that cities are doing to integrate health into their portfolio strategies. I wonder whether what they need to integrate equally is an investment strategy into that portfolio, so that it is not just flexed for health and climate benefits, but that it is made available to various types of capital in the right way. Stay with me, Lena, for a minute. I want to bring cities onto the stage, but we haven't heard from Glyn yet. And Glyn, I know you work for the private sector, but there is a whole ecosystem of, I'm going to say, experts thinking about climate and health. What you've heard, whether it be from the financiers or whether it be from those who have projects, how well aligned is that with Bupa's strategy and the strategy of others in the coalitions that you are part of?
I mean, in short, very aligned. I think one of the things I was reflecting on as you were all speaking is, and in fact it came up in a question around private sector versus public sector, I think it's definitely not an either or. You kind of have to do this together. And this is our great learning in the Resilient Cities Reimagining Health program, is the success comes from bringing the two kind of parties, if you like, together. From a Bupa standpoint, this started from a recognition, and I should say Bupa is a company, we're a private sector company. We look after about almost 70 million customers globally, employ about 100,000 people, but we're not a shareholder business, so we are actually very, very purpose-driven, and it is the way that we kind of get things done. We're a healthcare company, so I mean, without looking after people's health, we're just not doing our job, and frankly, we will not be a successful business. And what we've done, that's allowed us to do is be quite expansive in our thinking around how we deliver better health to our customers and our would-be customers, i.e. the communities. So I think one of the things we were thinking about this is as we get better and better at delivering better quality care in our facilities, to our customers, we also, and providing health insurance that meets their needs, one of the things is also thinking about how do we effectively deliver prevention. So prevention is a function of where you live, amongst other things. And so it naturally led us to this place that says, let's have a conversation about place-based health, which has led us to the city conversation. And I mean, it was really great, frankly, to sit as part of the Sustainable Markets Initiative and not be alone in this conversation. So having Reckitt and Sanofi and UCB and others, engaging in the conversation and supporting the program that allows us to say, okay, well, this is how we take care of health beyond just the 2,000 facilities that we operate or the health insurance that we provide. And it's part of a broader transformation at Bupa to deliver more effective preventative health interventions. So we are launching products and services that are preventative in nature, beyond just insurance. We are operating services that are preventative in nature. And then we're now thinking about, okay, well, where does that naturally lead us to? What are the kind of the enabling conditions that we need? And one of the program has been fantastic, and Ollie talked about sort of the deliverables and the findings, and we've heard about the community of practice, 33 cities. I think what is interesting is how do you drive the scale beyond the program? And I think that's where the investment strategy comes from. So, who is ultimately going to pay for this program to become global in the sense that it's sort of a self-fulfilling? And I think we have been very privileged to be working with organizations like the Yale School of Public Health to create frameworks that allow us to decide where we invest money that we deliver through some of our in-house urban regeneration programs in a way that tangibly and credibly and, with academic basis delivers better health. And so that's the really exciting piece. And I think if we bring those things together, I do think the investment strategy becomes much, much clearer. And you can actually go to banks and to other people who might be making money available to cities and local authorities to actually say, this is an investable solution that returns money to you as the investor. Because that's the other point around this. The business case is there, but it doesn't always mean that the money returns to the investor that put the money out in the first place, in which case there isn't a business case.
Correct.
So I think that's the really exciting piece. And it requires a super local approach to this with a recognition that you're rooting it in something that's broader in terms of, local adaptation plans, so national adaptation plans and so on.
So I think you're honing in on what we're going to need to scale. We need the investable business cases. We need community-driven local opportunities, but we need to do that at scale to be meaningful. I promised that we'd bring others into the room. And also I heard a very generous offer from Lena to bring cities to this stage. Before we do that, let me just ask, how many city representatives are there? Raise your hand if you represent a city government. Okay, I'm going to call out who I see. I see Buenos Aires, I see Glasgow, I see London, I see Cape Town, I see Salvador. Okay, are any of you guys want to take Lena's seat and tell us from your perspectives? I think if I was to ask a question, it would be, what is the help you need from the financial community to finance your ambitious climate and health plans? Is there anybody who wants to come up and take the mic from Lena? I'm seeing Salvador mobilizing. Yes, please.
Thank you.
You want to do it in English or you want to do it in Portuguese?
Se conversar em inglês, fala em português.
Fala português. Okay, let's go for it. Let's keep it brief, so then we'll see if people can help me translate as required.
Ok, mas posso falar pouquinho da minha cidade?
Sure.
Hello, people. I'm Ana Paula Matos, Vice Mayor of Salvador, a beautiful city in the northeast of Brazil. We have a warm, strong, and very musical people. Our cities are very beautiful, but we have an historical of inequality, social inequality. And we are in the top of an geological fault. So we are subjected to landslides and floods. And our more vulnerable people live in the neighborhoods very, very climatically vulnerable. We have many challenges, social and climate challenges. So now I want to speak in Portuguese to speak more fast. Maybe? Okay. Quer transmitir? Okay.
What, you say it all,
Yes.
and then between us we'll summarize. So you go.
Eu pedi para falar em português para que vocês possam sentir a minha emoção de vice-prefeita, de governante, de alguém que é apaixonada pelo meu povo. Nós, de fato, temos muito sofrimento pelas questões climáticas.
So she says she wants to speak in Portuguese to convey her emotion as the vice mayor of the city, because Salvador suffers a lot with the climate vulnerability.
Nós, se tirarmos uma foto agora, nós ainda temos muitos problemas climáticos, muitos desafios, mas nós temos conseguido superar alguns deles por apoios e por redes multiníveis, por participação de redes como a de Cidades Resilientes, com apoio de filântropos e com um trabalho e um esforço muito próprio de financiamento com recurso internacional.
So she says Salvador continues to have lots of climate issues, but they've been able to face and deal with some of them successfully because of a network of partners that has been able to contribute with financing important solutions for the city's climate issues.
De modo muito pragmático, a gente busca a coerência entre o discurso e o percurso, entendendo que se ainda tiver uma única pessoa sofrendo com as questões climáticas, a gente está falhando. E está falhando enquanto comunidade. Os países são signatários dos grandes acordos, como o Acordo de Paris, nós estamos nas COP juntos, mas as pessoas moram nas cidades, elas têm que ser protagonistas das suas soluções.
So she says that if one person is suffering from climate hazards in Salvador, then the job is not being done. This has to be a people-centric system and people-centric solution. They participate in COPs and the multilateral climate regimes, but it all comes back to thinking about the centrality of citizens and people in the city.
Vou citar 2 desafios para que vocês possam compreender. Ao longo dos últimos anos, das últimas décadas, as mesmas comunidades morriam com as chuvas, com os desabamentos e com os alagamentos. Mas fazer a mudança disso, uma cidade que tem 1000 áreas de riscos, que precisam fazer contenção de encostas para que as pessoas não morram, não caiam com as chuvas, a gente precisou investir muito e muito dinheiro.
So she says she's going to talk about 2 different challenges to exemplify the issue. The same communities in Salvador were always the ones that are affected by the excessive rains, for instance. And she says that there are over 1,000 really vulnerable areas, and they have to contain the mountains and to ensure that when very strong rain comes, no one is at risk of dying.
Centenas de milhões de dólares de financiamento com CAF, BID, Banco Mundial e apoio técnico de redes como GECOM, C40, Bloomberg Philanthropy, GIZ e rede de cidades resilientes.
So they've established a partnership network that contemplates multilateral banks like CAF, IDB, and the World Bank, but also Bloomberg and other philanthropies to make sure that these solutions are being effectively financed.
Nós temos conseguido mudar a vida de muitas comunidades. Só na bacia do Mané Dendê, são 34 mil famílias que estão sendo apoiadas por um projeto de requalificação urbana. Para vocês terem uma ideia, em 2015, choveu muito na cidade, perdemos 26 vidas e mais de 30 mil famílias foram afetadas em áreas que há 20 anos atrás vidas já tinham sido perdidas. Esta parte a gente superou, mas qual é o problema?
So she says that this policy and financing framework has been able to help over 35,000 people. In 2015, there were very strong rains in the city, and the same areas that were affected 20 years ago are the same areas that continue to be affected today.
Qual é a grande questão? Só uma contenção de encosta foram mais de 30 milhões de reais. Isso é caro para as cidades. Os governantes têm problemas muito emergentes de construção de hospital, de escola, e a tecnologia verde ela é mais cara. Um ônibus elétrico custa 4,5 vezes um ônibus convencional.
So she says that only the barrage of one mountain to make sure that it doesn't come down with the rain costs around 30 million reais, which is extremely expensive for cities to face alone. And that green technologies are still inaccessible, and we have to bring those costs down.
Nossa cidade tem quase 3 milhões de habitantes. Nós temos técnicos que têm conseguido nos ajudar a ter acesso a financiamento internacional. Mas muitas cidades menores, de redes das quais eu participo, como o Pacto Global de Prefeitas e Prefeitas de Clima e Energia, elas não têm essa condição. Então, o financiamento para a gente é muito importante, mas especialmente recurso a fundo perdido e acesso à tecnologia mais barata. E esse é o chamado para vocês, para compartilhar tecnologia, para compartilhar acesso a recurso a fundo perdido, recurso mais barato, ainda que a gente consiga pensar o projeto e colocar em prática como algo que tem que ser feito, sim, no coletivo.
So she says that Salvador has 30 million inhabitants, and they have technicians that are able to access international climate finance, but that's not the reality for most of the smaller cities in the region. So her ask for the financial sector is that they that have more loans or resources that don't contribute to indebtedness, and also technology transfer, and to make sure that green technologies are more accessible.
Então, eu falei do primeiro exemplo, que foi da questão dos desabamentos, a necessidade de tecnologia verde, geomanta, de cortina atirantada, não sei se você vai saber traduzir, mas eu vou falar da segunda questão. A gente tem sofrido também muito com calor. Nós temos a maior festa popular do mundo, que é o Carnaval. E 2 anos atrás, eu era secretária de saúde e precisei colocar pontos de hidratação, distribuição de protetor solar, pontos de hidratação, não só para beber água, mas aéreo, e uma série de estratégias para que as pessoas não morressem ou não tivessem questões de saúde no Carnaval por causa do calor.
So she says that besides the access to green technologies and the financing, one of the big risks is extreme heat, and that Salvador has the Carnival, which is a big popular party, and that they had to put in hydration points and distribute sunscreen, etc., to deal with the extreme heat and how that was affecting the city.
E para finalizar, a gente não acredita em desenvolvimento econômico sem o social. A gente acredita em sustentabilidade ambiental e social. A gente trabalha pela justiça climática.
So she doesn't believe in economic development without social development. We're talking about environmental, social developments with the lens of climate justice.
Então, nós fazemos um chamado para trabalhar em conjunto, para continuarmos investindo não só na educação ambiental e social, mas na cultura climática, envolvendo a comunidade, as crianças, os idosos, os líderes comunitários, fazendo com que a tecnologia social, de fato, seja um vetor de força junto com o recurso que é fundamental.
So she says that it's actually a calling for us to all work together, not only in environmental education, but in an environmental culture that is able to bring in governance mechanisms that can bring in the most vulnerable and everyone that has to be involved in the co-design of these climate solutions.
Para finalizar, nós costumamos contar as vidas perdidas. Fiquei muito feliz pelo início da apresentação, se contando as vidas salvas, mas em Salvador, a gente tem conseguido salvar a vida das pessoas pela tecnologia social. Ninguém quer, a pessoa mais pobre não quer sair de casa e deixar a sua geladeira, sua televisão, suas coisas mais íntimas. Sabe como a gente conseguiu salvar as pessoas? Identificando os líderes locais que nos ajudam a fazer um acordo comunitário. Então, esse é o chamado. Vamos trabalhar juntos, vamos ouvir as pessoas, vamos, de fato, fazer desse mundo um mundo melhor, com dinheiro, mas com decisão, com muito amor e com muita força. Vamos juntos.
So she says that we usually count the name of deaths, but we have to count the number of people that we're actually being able to save. And Salvador is being able to shift this narrative. And this is done through community leadership and making sure that we engage all of the right people. And this is the big ask that the big message that she wants to leave, that we can all strengthen this community engagement.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to stay here with you. And please, we have to work together.
Thank you. Stay sitting there. Take a seat. Take a seat. You're certainly very passionate, especially in Portuguese. And if you've not been to Salvador, you really should. I think one thing that's really important when we run these sessions is that we run to time. And the clock is ticking on us. The people on the panel are not going anywhere. They're going to stick around. And there are drinks as well for people that want to catch them afterwards. But I also see lots of, I'd say, climate and health experts in the room. I saw Robin a moment ago. I saw Yamid a moment ago. I think I even saw Marcia walking in. So is there anybody from the floor that either wants to say something or contribute? If not, oh, I see Marcia mobilizing. Is there something you want to say from the perspective of the climate champions? And then maybe I'll let you have a closing word, Marcia, and then we'll go to coffee.
Thank you. Really interesting discussion. My name is Marcia Toledo. I'm Director for Resilience and Human Development, working in the Climate Champions team, mobilizing the Global Climate Action Agenda with initiatives, plans to accelerate solution host, and health is a major priority as part of the Axis 5 that focus on social development. And very key to this point is exactly that intersection between deployment of solutions that can help tackle the health challenges we have in the intersection with climate, but especially the mobilization, the articulation of project pipelines, finance, different structures that exist that can help mobilize that. So my reflection is that we have an incredible continuity from COP30 in regards of the COP31 priority. COP31 has recognized health as a top priority for this year. And we hear all the time already in these 2 days, but will continue to be this week, is an issue about how do we better articulate all these different finance mobilization opportunities from private sector, from public, from MDBs, from the philanthropy catalytic support that integrates. So how can we move away from these different opportunities that are isolated to better articulate these that can actually show the finance flows for health and climate interaction?
Thanks, Marcia. I think I want to leave it there because what I take away from the conversation is that there are lots of people motivated to solve, that there's no shortage of capital or expertise, whether it be risk capital or debt capital. There's no shortage of passion and projects, and no shortage of alignment with those others in the ecosystem who want to move this forward. So I'm going to say, why don't we do a round of applause for everybody, because you all participated. Let's grab a coffee and continue the conversation. Thank you.